This lady won $500,000 from the lottery, which is cool. But what's even cooler is that that's how much we spend every single month on Facebook ads for our business, our portfolio of businesses, and the 80 to 90 active clients that we have right now. Now in this video, I'm going to go over the 30 most important lessons that we have learned that allow us to guarantee profitability and help scale companies fast. Now I'm going to keep them quick so they can be actionable for all of you. All right, now the first one is that ads always work. And if you've failed with ads before, or if you think that ads don't work, that is wrong. It's just that you failed before cracking the code. Because fundamentally, if you have a product or service that solves a problem, the people that have that problem exist on Facebook and Instagram. And if your ads aren't working, you might have a messaging problem, you might have a targeting problem, you might have a landing page problem, you might have a conversion mechanism problem. However, when you adopt the mindset of ads always work, it's just a matter of figuring out the right offer and the right messaging and the right conversion mechanism, then it'll give you the confidence to keep pushing because you were only one ad campaign away from making life-changing growth and incomes within your business and personal life. Next is that if this is your first time running ads, you probably suck at closing cold traffic, and that's okay. Many people, me included, when they start running ads to cold traffic, they are shocked as to how low quality the leads are, how many objections they are, and about all of these problems, right? Now that is going to happen because these people that don't know you, they don't like you, they haven't watched your content, they haven't been referred to you. So there's going to be a much higher barrier of resistance that they have before wanting to do business with you. But the good news is that once you crack the code on how to sell these cold traffic, then you have the upside of unlimited scalability with ads. So when you're taking your first few sales calls through cold traffic and they're not closing, do not get discouraged. That is okay, because similar to point number one, ads always work. And once you learn how to close cold traffic, and I guarantee you it is 100% possible. I've seen it happen hundreds and hundreds of times. Again, we make the majority of our money through cold traffic. Then you will be able to unlock unlimited scale within your business. Third, and this is more of a mindset one, is that growing a business is uncomfortable. When people go to the gym and they lift weights, they go through pain and their muscles break down, but they do it, however, as a fault of gurus or the way that it's been sold or whatever. People sometimes have this illusion that I can just spend a little bit of money on ads and I'm going to make a whole ton of money and it's going to be completely painless and there's going to be no problems and life is just going to be sunshine and rainbows, which is completely false. Right? When you open up a new acquisition channel, when you begin to grow your business and grow yourself as an entrepreneur, it is going to be uncomfortable. So the pain that you are experiencing if you're struggling with ads or if ads aren't converting as well as they should is completely normal. And that is what it actually feels like to grow. Adopting this mentality is another big lever that we've been able to pull in both our own business and our clients' businesses to help them push through tougher times to get to the point where, back to point number one, ads will always work. Next point is that you need to lose $1,000 to make your first 10K. You need to lose 10K to make your first $100,000, and you need to lose $100,000 to make your first $1 million. One of our most successful campaigns, which I will show some screenshots right here, we actually were down $10,000 just 7 days into the performance. Right? But instead of freaking out, instead of thinking that all was lost, we just kept letting Facebook optimize. We waited for our 2 to 3 week long sales cycle to catch up. And as a result, about 60 days later, we had cash collected $136,000 and profited over 80 grand. Now, the thing is everybody has the potential to make 136K and profit 80 grand, but most people will quit after they've lost a few $1,000s on ads instead of seeing it through. And as a result, never have the experience. We believe that the reason that we and companies at our level see results that 99% of people don't see is because we just push through things that 99% of people will quit on. Point number 5 is that your first $3,000 to $5,000 should always be just for testing, and you should not stress about 10xing it. And if you don't have the money to sink $5,000 into ads before seeing a return, you should probably stick to cold outbound until you have that kind of money. Because in that initial testing phase, we're testing new offers, we're testing new angles, we're testing new landing pages, we're testing new hooks, and 9 out of 10 of them are going to flop. Heck, I've launched over 500 unique creatives in the last year. That being said, I think we only have about 20 to 30 active creatives right now, right? That means that over 90% of the ads that I run flop. and they don't perform. But the reason that we're able to still scale as well as we have through paid ads is because it only takes a few winners. That's why when you're first starting out, you want to test as many creatives as you possibly can, because you only need 1 to 3 winning creatives to massively outperform and to quickly scale your marketing agency. The next point is that a really good and in-demand offer can solve all of your advertising problems. If you have an offer that people really want and people really like, and people actually believe that you're going to be able to deliver on it because you give them some form of proof or reason to believe it, you can have bad ad creatives and still do really well. You can have a bad sales team and still do really well. You can have bad landing pages and still do really well. And so that's why before you start your advertising, it's best to do a ton of market research to identify exactly what your ICP wants, what they don't want, what they're afraid of, and how much work and time they want to put into growing their business. And then if you just give them what they want, you guarantee that they won't get anything that they're afraid of or what they don't want, and you align it with how much work they want to put into this, your offer is going to do very well. And when you have an offer like that, even simple static image ads or okay creatives and simple landing pages will do exceptionally well. And to build on that, in my next point is that your first offer is never going to be a magic wand. Whenever we're launching ads for a client of ours, or we're launching ads even at our own businesses, we'll usually test 1 to 3, sometimes 4 different offers until we find that one winning offer that completely will take off and explode the business, right? So if you launch an offer and you've spent a little bit of money on it and it's not converting, it's hard to sell, instead of just, oh, ads don't work, why isn't it selling? Why isn't it converting? What are people still afraid of? What are people objection? What is the market telling us? Okay, let's take that information, let's adjust it, let's rework our offer, let's relaunch. And if you do that just 2, 3, 4 times, you will find that winning offer that will take your business to the next level. The next one is lifetime value to cost of acquisition is the only thing that matters. I don't care what your cost per lead is, your CPM, your link click-through rate, your opt-in rate, what your cost per book call is. Nothing of that sense matters. The only thing that matters is that your cost of acquisition to lifetime value. Now, here's another little trick that not many people think of when it comes to scaling ads, right? Your cost of acquisition can only theoretically go down by 100%, but your lifetime value has infinite scalability. And so let's say you have a cost of acquisition of $1,000, but you're only selling a $2,000 offer and you're stressing about margins because it's costing you 50% of your profit just to acquire the customer. It's a lot easier to figure out a way to charge $4,000, $5,000, and $10,000 than it is to try and get your $1,000 cost of acquisition down to $500, or worse, your $500 cost of acquisition down to just $200, $300, because the cost of ads is always going to go up. And as you scale into colder and colder traffic, your cost of ads and cost of acquisition is always going to go up. So if you're looking at ads and you're running the math and you're thinking, well, if I'm going to maintain profitability, I got to keep my cost of acquisition below $1,000. It's much better for you to think, okay, how can I 10x what people are paying me over the next 12 months through higher ticket on the front end, through back end ascensions, through better recurring, so then I can spend $2, $3, $4,000 to acquire a customer. Because if you have a lifetime value of $30,000, for example, then you can spend $5,000 to acquire a customer. And even if you suck at ads, you suck at sales, you have the worst sales team in the world, you can acquire customers pretty easily if you have $5,000 to acquire a customer. And then with that in place, again, scaling becomes super easy. The next thing is to never sell your offer in the ads, but to always sell the next step. So the ad should sell clicking the link below and what's on the landing page. And then when you arrive on the landing page, the VSL or the headline copy should sell opting in. And then once you opt in and you go to that scheduling page, the copy on the scheduling page should sell booking a call and the value that they're going to get out of booking a call. And then after they book a call, your nurture sequences and your reminder sequences should sell showing up to the call because of the value that they're going to get to the call and why it's worth their time and why it's so valuable that it's something that they should be paying for on their own. And then not until the sales call is when you actually sell the offer, because you have very cold traffic. Nobody's going to go from watching a 30-second ad to buying your $10,000 offer, but they will go from watching your 30-second ad to then clicking. And then once they click, they will go from reading your landing page to opting in. And then once they opt in, they will go from looking at your scheduling page to booking a call. And once they book a call, they will go from booking that call to showing up to it. And then they will go from having a conversation with you to buying your offer. But they will not make the jump from ad to buying your offer. So you're better off selling the next step. The next lesson is to not talk about your features, but to talk about how what you do will actually impact your client's life. I see so many people make this mistake in advertising where they talk about, we do this and we do that and we do this and we do that, but nobody actually cares. They just care about how it will impact their life. And a real case study that I have is that I had this video sales letter that I scripted and I produced it, and I had a cameraman, and it was all fancy, and I put a lot of time and effort into it. And what I did is I just answered the 22 most frequently asked questions. What do you do? How much does it cost? All this kind of stuff. And guess what? People were complaining that there was, quote, too much fluff in our marketing, and they didn't really get it, right? And I was like, how does that even make sense? It's 22 questions where I literally just exactly explain what we do with zero fluff whatsoever. Then I flipped it and said, you know what? I'm going to go quote unquote all fluff, because I'm not even going to really say a whole bunch about what we do. Instead, I'm just going to talk about how it will impact their life, right? And as a result, I cut my 22-minute VSL of just answering 22 questions to a 7-minute VSL where I give a high level of what we do, but then I more importantly double down on how it will impact their life. I made those changes to both the ads and our video sales letter, and our cost per qualified book call went from $400 down to just $120. The next lesson is that the hook is the most important part of the ad. And that's why what I will always do is I will make one body copy and then have 5 to 10 different hooks that I will test in front of that body copy. Now, a real life case study that I have from one of our own campaigns is that we had one ad with 2 different hooks, same body copy, 2 different hooks. The first hook had an $18 cost per lead and a $70 cost per book call. This was on another offer that I was running. And the second hook had a $2 cost per lead and a $16 cost per book call. Now, the funny thing is that it was the exact same ad, the exact same offer. The difference is that the first hook was super relatable, and it was also kind of humorous as well. And people were thinking like, holy shit, like how does he actually know that much about me? Which really caught their attention, had people actually consume the body content and then opt in and then book a call. Second ad that I ran that had the $16 cost per lead and the $60-something cost per book call, it was more of just like a generic hook calling out people, which maybe had people believe that, oh, this is just another person trying to sell me something. And so that's why I always test 5 to 10 different hooks per body copy, because the body part of it, I haven't seen too much of an increase on how well it performs, but a single hook can wildly outperform other hooks. The next lesson is to always make ads from the perspective of your leads, not yourself. When you are making your ads, you always want to be thinking about, okay, if I saw this ad on my feed, how would I react? Would I respond? Would I interact? Does it speak to my desires as a customer, or does it speak to the desires of the business? An example of what this looks like is, don't talk about how many clients you have and how great you are and how your clients are this. Talk about how your clients' lives have changed, right? Don't talk about your accomplishment. Talk about your clients' accomplishments as a result of working with you, and you will see an increase in the conversions, leads, calls, and ultimately clients. The next one is to speak in a 3rd grade reading level. A confused buyer will not buy. And if they don't understand what you're talking about in the ad, they're probably not going to click, they're probably not going to opt in, and they're probably not going to convert. That's why anytime I write advertising copy, I simply upload it to ChatGPT and I ask it to rewrite it as a 3rd grade reading level. Because it can be something as simple as you using an abbreviation like LTV to CAC that maybe somebody has never heard of before and they don't understand it. And they're like, oh, I don't really know what this is. I'm going to keep scrolling. But instead of saying LTV to CAC, talk about the only thing that really matters is how much you spend to get a new customer to work with you in comparison to how much that customer actually pays you over the long run, right? That's something that even a 3rd grade reader would be able to understand. And as a result, you're going to be able to capture a higher percentage of people. And the more advanced people that you're speaking with, it's going to require less mental calories and less mental effort for them to understand what you're talking about in the ad, which will lead to better conversions. The next one is to use damaging admissions when possible. So what a damaging admission is when you essentially admit to a flaw about yourself, but then you follow that up with a but statement and then admit to a positive. And when you do this, you come across as more trustworthy, more genuine, and you become to be a lot more believable. So an example of one of the things that I do in my advertising is I will show a bunch of case studies. And then I will say, now, obviously, I can't guarantee that you're going to scale to $600,000 a month like we did for that client I just showed you. But I can guarantee that you're going to get a minimum of 20 high-paying clients on your offer, which sounds a lot more believable than if I just came right off the top saying, hey, I guarantee that you're going to get 20 clients, or if you don't pay me. The next lesson is that proof will always outperform promises. When I look at the top 20% ads I've always run, they're usually just flooded with case studies, right? Because fundamentally, if people are going to work with you, they need to believe that you know something that they don't and that you can get results. And really, there's two ways of actually delivering that. One is to deliver so much value and speak so fluently and just make such a good ad that people are like, holy shit, this guy is so dialed. He must be really, really good at advertising, right? Like he must be really good at what he does because this was a sick ad, right? Which is possible and works sometimes, right? But then it's a lot easier if instead of relying on like advanced marketing and advertising and camera work and all this kind of stuff, if you just show undeniable proof that you're actually able to deliver the result, right? Then even shitty advertisers can do well if they just show proof. The next one is that if you can't watch your ads back without getting bored, your prospects won't either. Now, sometimes we have clients that after we've sent them scripts, they'll film them and then they'll send them back to us for us to edit. And I look at the creative and they're like sitting there in their bedroom or they're stumbling through the copy. And I just asked them, I was like, hey, if I ran this ad, would you have wanted to work with Catalyst? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, exactly. The people that see this ad on Facebook aren't going to want to work with you either, right? And so a litmus test that I always will do before running my own ads or before running client ads, and you should do before running your own ads, is that if you can watch your ads back and you're like, okay, this is good, this is interesting, like this is pretty cool, then run it as an ad. If you're watching this ad back and you're bored after like the first hook, or you're bored after the first 6 seconds and you're like, well, I made an ad, it doesn't have to be good, let's just get it out because I don't really want to put in a ton of hard work, it's just not going to work. You're not going to make money because you are invested into your company more than anybody else. You have a reason to pay attention to what's going on at your company more than anybody else. And if you can't watch your ads back without getting bored, don't expect anybody in the market to either. The next lesson is that how you present yourself actually matters. Now, this is something that I actually didn't believe in the beginning. I didn't think that it mattered if I looked good or if I would, wearing good clothes or anything like that. And so as a result, I would film ads in like random flannels and in random spots with like my iPhone and like whatever, put like little effort to it because I thought the copy was the only thing that matters. And as a result, not only did I get hate comments on the ad that people just said like, I don't believe this guy, look at this kid, he's living out of his parents' basement, or did daddy buy that a penthouse for you, whatever. We also noticed that the quality of leads that were coming through the funnel weren't ideal. And then as of recently, I started making my ads, well, not dressing up, but making sure that I'm wearing a nice clean t-shirt and a good background, all that kind of stuff. And I'm telling you, the majority of leads that are coming through our funnel are already doing 50 to 100. And we speak with many companies doing millions and millions and millions of dollars a year, right? And fundamentally, a lot of our advertising copy hasn't changed, but just how I've presented myself has more attracted quality individuals because I've dressed like them, I've began to talk like them, and as a result, more of them have wanted to do business with me. The next lesson is that image ads are cheaper, but video ads will convert better. So when you run image ads, you will get a lower cost per impression, you will get lower cost per click, and a lot of times you'll even get lower cost per lead and lower cost per book call. However, the people that are opting in, booking a call and stuff like that don't have as much context into what you do because they just saw a quick little image, right? They just saw an ad, they clicked on it, they opted in, they don't really know what's going on, right? So although you might get lower vanity metrics like clicks and leads and stuff like that, typically we see lower show rates and we see lower conversions on those ads because people don't really know what is going on or what it's about, or they forget about it easier because they just saw an image ad and they forgot about the image entirely. On the flip, when you run video ads, you're typically going to see a higher cost per click, a higher cost per lead, and a higher cost per call, but people will have assumed more content and will have more context into what it is that you do before they click, before they opt in, and before they book a call. And as a result, you will typically get lower cost per conversion with your video ads. The next lesson is your ad has to be congruent with your landing page. So what you talk about in your ad should be 100% in congruency with what you talk about on your landing page, right? A random example is that if you talk about cat food on your ad, but then you talk about dog food on your landing page, you're going to get a lot of clicks, but then you'll get low conversions because people will land on the landing page and think, oh, this isn't what I thought it was, or oh, this was a bait and switch or whatever. However, on the flip is if you talk about cat food on the ad, right? And you say, click below to get some cat food. And then you land on the landing page and you're like, here is your cat food. A, you have just fulfilled on a micro promise, which increases your trust that you have with the prospects. And B, you're going to have a higher conversion rate because people are like, okay, this is what I clicked on. This is actually what I'm looking for. Now I actually get what I'm looking for. The next lesson is that landing pages will generate higher quality leads than lead forms. Now, I believe that there's no such thing as a low quality lead unless they are broke and homeless or not your ICP, right? And so therefore, the low quality leads that a lot of us complain about really aren't low quality leads. They're just leads that aren't interested. The cliche example that people like to give is that, well, if you were selling a Lamborghini for $1,000, people would be opting in and people would actually be showing up to calls and all that kind of stuff, right? So then how do we make our leads higher quality then? Right? Well, we portray more value. Right now, using Alex Hormozi's value equation, how do we portray more value? Well, we increase the dream outcome, we increase the perceived likelihood of achievement, we decrease the time delay, and we decrease the effort and sacrifice. So those are the 4 levers that we can pull to increase the perceived value. And if we offer something with a high perceived value, we're going to get more interested leads, which are going to appear to be as more quality leads, right? Now, the problem with lead forms is that you only have a title and a little bit of text in order to pull on those 4 levers. However, when you send people to a landing page, you can add images to that landing page. You can add a video sales letter to that landing page. You have unlimited flexibility with your copy, your headlines, your subheaders, your callouts, etc., which allows you the ability to properly address the dream outcome, the likelihood of achievement, the effort and sacrifice, and the time delay, which then as a result, when people opt in, they will have more context and better understanding of what it is that you do and what you're offering. And then therefore, when they get passed on to the sales team, will come across as quote unquote higher quality leads. The next lesson is that if you're spending less than $1,000 a day on ads, your campaigns are going to appear inconsistent, but that's not necessarily a problem. And let me explain why. If we look at our campaigns and we say we have a $100 cost per book call, we don't actually have a $100 cost per book call. No, we spent $99.99 and we didn't book a single call. And then we spent 1 cent on one single impression that booked a call. Advertising doesn't work in the sense where for every $100 I spend, I book 1 call. It's simply how much we have spent on ads divided by how many calls that we have booked. And the actual conversions that we get are from single cents that we spend on single conversions, right? So if we're spending $100 a day, for example, you might spend 3 cents and book 3 calls, right? But then you might not book another call for 2 or 3 days, and then you still have your $100 cost per book call, right? And so if you're only spending these low amounts, you might get a 1 cent conversion here. The next day you might get another 2 conversions where you spent 2 cents and they converted, but then you might go 4 days with 0 conversions, right? And it all averages out to be your $100 cost per book call. But when you're looking things at a daily time frame, it appears inconsistent because one day I book 2 calls, the next day I book 0, the next day I book 3. However, once you get up to spends of about $1,000 and beyond, you have enough volume going in where you're going to be getting those conversions every single day. So this isn't necessarily a problem or anything that you need to fix, but just a mindset that you need to understand is that if you're spending less than $1,000 a day, you need to accept that it's going to appear inconsistent. The next lesson is that you will get low quality leads. I had a client complain once that before they worked with us, all they got was low quality leads. And I was like, interesting. Right. And they're like, what percentage of leads that came through were unqualified by your standards? And they were like, well, about 50%. So it was like really annoying. I was like, I was like, well, how would you like to have my company? They're like, oh my God, like that is the dream. I would love to have a company like your size and making your impact and kind of stuff. I was like, well, get this. And I literally just pulled up our funnel stats and I showed them that 50% of the people that opt into our funnel don't even run a business and are like just completely wasting our time. And then of the 50% of people that do opt in, only about 20% of our leads that come through our funnel are actually qualified by our standards, right? But the thing is that we spend enough on ads and we do enough volume so that even though we only have 20% of people coming through actually be qualified, our sales team has enough volume of qualified leads to be able to be busy and to continue to scale. However, when you're spending low amounts on ads and you only get 10 book calls a week, right? And only 2 of them are qualified, it can seem like all of these ads are doing is generating unqualified leads. The next lesson is that you will see high quality and quantity volatility in the beginning. So when your ads are in learning phase, what Facebook is doing is it's taking your ad, your offer, and your messaging, and it's testing it with this audience, and it's testing it with this audience, and it's testing it with this audience until it gathers enough data to know exactly who to be showing these ads for over time. And what it needs to do in order to do that is it needs to get 50 conversions, right? So in that time when you're testing this audience and testing this audience and testing this audiences, we will always see very high volatility in terms of results. One day you might have a $10 cost per book call, and the next day you might book zero cost per book calls. One week you might have super qualified leads, and the next week you're going to have super unqualified leads. And that's totally normal, and that's totally okay. That is just Facebook going through the learning and optimization phase. And once you get those 50 conversions, so far as you're doing what I'm going to share in the next point, things will work out for you in the long run and you'll be able to scale. The next lesson is to only optimize for your highest quality leads. So what we do for this and what we do for our clients is we set up a type form or survey type opt-in. And based on the answers that the lead gives inside of that survey, they get sent to one of 3 landing pages. The most qualified leads get sent to landing page number 1. But the key with this is that we only fire the pixel and we only trigger it as a book call if people book on landing page number 1. Leads that are kind of qualified get sent to landing page number 2, and they usually speak to the setters, and then leads that are unqualified typically get disqualified. But as a result of doing this, we send Facebook only the conversion data from our most ideal and highest quality prospects, which then tells Facebook that this is what we're looking for. And then Facebook goes out and finds more people like that. If you're optimizing for just book calls of any capacity, then you're going to get more of whoever is booking calls. And if low quality people are booking calls, well, then you're just going to get more of that. This can be solved by implementing that strategy. The next lesson is that every single ad funnel works and there's no magic funnel. Lead forms work, webinar funnels work, book a call funnels work, auto low ticket to high work, lead magnets work, DM funnels work. They all work. It's just a matter of continuously tweaking your creatives, your offers, your messaging, and your actual sales process until you crack the code. Now, in addition to that, what we have seen is that there's a certain percentage of your market that will convert best with each individual funnel, right? So for example, you can start with, say, a book a call funnel. And then once you scale that up to 200-300K per month, then at that point, what we like to do is then go and launch a DM funnel or launch a different type of funnel. Because there is some people that only want to do business in the sense where they book a call and they speak to you one person, right? And then there's going to be other people in your market that don't want to book a call with you. They will never book a call with a sales team, but they're happy to DM you, right? And then there's also people in your market that don't want to talk to anybody. They don't want to book a call with you. They don't want to DM you, nothing. They will only do business with you if they first buy one of your low ticket products, right? And so in every single market, every single funnel will work. It's just a matter of cracking the code on each one. There's no magic funnel. And typically what we see is the funnel that performs the best, or when people say this is the only funnel that works, it's just because they have the most skills and experience in scaling those types of funnels. The next lesson is that you cannot measure your ad results in time. You have to measure it in spend. If you're spending $20 a day on ads, it's going to take you 5 times as long to see the results as if you're spending $100 a day. So what sometimes people will do is they'll spend $20 a day on ads, and then they'll run their ads for 2 weeks, and then they'll not get any results, and then they will think ads that don't work. But ads aren't about how much time you wait to see results, and how quickly you see results with ads has nothing to do with how much time actually elapses. It's not about you waiting 7 days to see results with ads. It's about you spending $2,000 before you start seeing results with ads. And adopting this mindset allows you to understand that if you're spending low amounts of money, it's okay to be patient, and it gives you the relief to be patient. The next lesson that we learned is that if you have a show up rate problem, it is not an advertising problem. We've had clients and even our own sales team complain that the leads don't show up. We need to change the ads. But let's look at this from a logical perspective. Let's say you're running ads that are blue. You have blue colored ads, okay? And the leads aren't showing up and the ads are blue colored. Do you actually think that if you change the ads to be red, all of a sudden all the leads are going to start showing up? No, that's a completely ridiculous thought pattern, right? And so if people are booking the call, if your ICP is booking the call, but then they're not showing up, you do not need to work on your advertising. You need to work on your lead nurture and show up rate optimization process. The next lesson is that one single winning campaign will outperform all of your losers, right? You might have 10 failed campaigns and you might be down $10,000, $20,000. That's a position that I've been in many times in my business career. However, you can launch a single campaign and make back all of your money and then some, right? And so that's why it's okay to keep pushing and keep trying again and keep trying again and keep trying again. Because once you get a single campaign, most successful campaigns that we've had have generated 1 3, 4, even $500,000 in attributed revenue from a single campaign, right? So even if we have 10 failures and we lose $100,000, and I'm talking a very extreme example, but then the 11th one makes us 500 grand, we're still massively profitable and have a great ROI on our overall advertising efforts. The next lesson is that your sales team and your advertising team should always be in constant feedback. So here at our company, I am regularly contacting and in communication with the sales team, learning about the lead quality, learning about, do we need to say something different on the ads? Do we need to adjust the VSL? Are expectations being set in any wrong? Do we need to adjust the nurture sequences? Anything like that? And using their feedback to actually, which is technically the market feedback, right? Because they're the one that are actually talking with the customers, to adjust the front end advertising. And we do the exact same thing with our clients. We're in regular communication with our client sales teams as well, listening to the feedback that we get, using that as the market feedback that we can then go and adjust and test new things on the front end to overall optimize the performance of their campaign. The follow-up lesson to that, though, is that always take your sales team's feedback with a grain of salt, right? It can be very common sometimes where you have these sales reps that like to blame advertising instead of just getting better at sales. So when you get this feedback, make sure to really question and ask them follow-up questions and really dig deep into the problem that they are presenting, and ideally actually watching their sales calls recording back too. Because sometimes sales reps will take the easy rep out and they'll just complain because they just want to put the problem on something else because they're perfect and they're the best sales rep in the world, right? And so if you get feedback, use that as just simply an indicator of something to dig deeper into, whether it be a conversation with that rep, a conversation with the sales manager, and or digging into and actually watching the sales call where they're quote unquote complaining about, to see what the actual root of the problem is. Now, my 30th and final lesson is that if your ads aren't getting the results that you hope for, it's because you're not as good at advertising as you think you are. And this is a lesson that I've learned over and over and over again. Now, the reason that we get frustrated with results, right, is because we think that we are at a certain level. And as a result of what we think about ourselves, we think that we're going to get a certain result, right? And then what happens is we do what we know how to do, and then we don't get that result. And then we blame advertising, or we blame the market, or we blame something different, when really the reason that we didn't get that result is because we weren't good enough to get that result in the first place, right? And so if you aren't getting the results, if you're not closing enough clients, if you're not getting enough leads, whatever that case may be, it's not Facebook. It's not the market. It's not anything outside other than the fact that you're not good enough at advertising, and you just need to get better at advertising, because if you were actually good enough to get the results that you would hope for, guess what? You would have fucking got the results. All right, now instead of just clicking off of this video and thinking, now I know a lot about how to run ads, I'll just implement this later, I'm going to show you what you need to do exactly right now. So if you already have ads running, yes, just go and implement everything that I talked about exactly right now, and I guarantee you, you will scale. But if for whatever reason you don't have ads running, and you've failed in the past, or you haven't tried it, or you're considering and tried it, I want you to watch this video right here, which is going to give you an entire walkthrough of exactly how to create your offers and how to set up your ad account so you can actually implement the 30 lessons that I talked about here in this video and scale your company. Other than that, guys, I appreciate you guys for taking the time to watch this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.